Yeah, pretty excited about it. Little 5 game slate with a ton of news and then a bunch of baseball to talk about and play tomorrow. You kind of sound like you're underwater, but I can hear you. Yeah. I mean, it's better now.
How about that?
Sounds fine to me.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what was going on. I think my mic might have been unplugged, but I think we should be all right here. Well, oh, look who it is. Josh, how's
Yeah.
my mic sound for you? Can't hear him anyway. All right. Well, this will be good enough for now. It shouldn't. Huh. One second here, boys. It shouldn't be an issue. All right. Yeah,
have you up on the phone.
I understand you can't hear me. You should be able to hear me. Okay, we're good. Everyone's saying we're good.
You are not right. Whatever your audio is right now is not what it normally is.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. Couldn't tell you why, because my mixer has everything working. Let's see here.
So I hear you in the stream. But you are not like the way you normally sound.
Yeah, I wish I knew why. But you're right, because I can tell just by looking at this.
But you are outputting audio into the stream now, so I think you guys should be good.
Yeah, I wish it sounded right, but what are you gonna do?
Price you pay.
Price you pay. At least you can
No.
hear. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, you are audible on the stream now, so
Yeah, just
that's
not
really
good.
all that matters.
Just garbage audio is my assumption.
Pretty much.
All right, sweet.
All right. Good luck, gents.
No, thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Anyway, what I was trying to say before all of that is we are going to be switching over to baseball, of course, because baseball is upon us tomorrow. Now, and by the way, when Adam talks, I'm going to switch over and see if I can get this mic working. But if you guys have any suggestions, tweet at us how you'd like to see the crossover done with baseball and basketball. What I'm thinking of now is, look, we're going to spend more time on baseball. Okay, that's happening. Baseball season's coming up. Also, if you are a premium member at Awesome, all of our NBA content is going to continue. We're going to start putting cheat sheets out as well. But like, in addition, but what I'd like to do, Adam, is I'm thinking start 15 minutes before the top of the hour. So if a slate locks at 7 o'clock, start 15 minutes before, spend the first 15 on NBA. And a lot of for the next week coming up, most of it is most of them are pretty smaller slates and go position by position. And then the second hour, and then once we hit 5 o'clock, we'll work our way into baseball. And if it's a shorter baseball slate, we can spend more time on basketball. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think that should work perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, there's only so much we can do. But we want to be able to continue giving you guys as much content as possible. And I think that'll be the best way to do it. So that's what we'll do. Anyway, Adam, we've got 5 games here. We'll start off with some injury news. I actually wrote the deep dive differently today than I normally do because I literally couldn't write it position by position with the amount of news that was up in the air. So I went game by game, just breaking down how it would look if this circumstance breaks this way or that way. And it's kind of how it is, but we did get some news. We got the Bulls news, and now we're waiting on a few other pieces, but everything could change with 1 or 2 pieces of news breaking during the show.
Yeah, no question. Obviously still waiting on really big Mike Conley news. And then other than that, it's March 27th. So there's probably more news that we don't know that we're waiting for.
All right, well, let's get into it. We've got the, and sorry I sound like I'm trapped in a closet, as somebody mentioned, but for now, as long as you can hear me, as long as you know what I'm saying, then we're just going to have to deal for now. I understand there's some issues. Chicago and Portland. We've got no use of Nurkic after that gruesome break where the ref kicked his leg afterwards. And right now there's 3 games at 8, 1 at 10, 1 at 10:30. Portland and Chicago is one of the 8 p.m. games. 9-point favorites, 215 total. Let's start with the Bulls here, knowing that Porter, Levine, Dunn, and Markkanen are all out.
9 bodies available for Chicago, and we don't know if one of them will play. Raul Alkins, I guess is how you pronounce that. But he didn't pick up any time yesterday, even in the second half. So I don't think if he does play that it's likely to matter much. So essentially probably an 8-man rotation here for Chicago. Still reasonable prices on guys. The same value we had last night. They're not the most exciting names with Shaq Harrison and Ryan Arcidiacono and Wayne Selden and Antonio Blakeney, but they are basically all that the Bulls have here. And they all, on DraftKings, have multi-position eligibility, which is nice. On FanDuel, you still have Arcidiacono at like 3,600. You still have Blakeney at, I think, the absolute minimum. So just pretty clear value. Obviously, they'll be really, really popular. But if you take, all of Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine, Otto Porter, Chris Dunn off the floor and take off, Parker and Portis, Harrison's averaged about a fantasy point per minute this season. Arcidiacono is up over 0.8 points per minute. Selden is up right around 0.8 points per minute. So it's not like these guys are the absolute worst. Like, they're not very good, but for their price tags and the minutes that I expect them to play, they're popular for a reason. I mean, there's just not – it's pretty tough for guys at these price tags to play 30-plus minutes as the only players on the floor that can shoot the ball and really disappoint.
Right. Well, I mean, when it comes to the Bulls, they didn't have a good matchup yesterday. They don't have a good matchup today. But they're still going to get a lot of minutes. And interestingly, we got a different starting lineup than we expected. But Blakeney took 15 shots in 21 minutes. He has like a 28% usage rate with all of these guys off. I mean, at this rate, how do you prioritize them when we're talking about Arcidiacono, Shaq Harrison, Wayne Selden, who got the start and played 40 minutes, and then Sampson, who started the second half of Lauri Markkanen? I mean, when you're looking at all these guys compared to the rest of the field, compared to the other 4 games or 9 teams that we have on this slate, how are you prioritizing? Because obviously, you're going to see a decent amount of popularity here, especially where some of them are very, very cheap.
Yeah, and so I think, for one, this slate's different than yesterday since obviously there's only 5 games, but also you have a couple more guys to pay up for. You have Dame Lillard, you have Westbrook. So just getting 25 to 30 points out of these guys is a little bit more valuable than I think it was yesterday. Shaq Harrison, I mentioned, is averaging a fantasy point per minute without any of these guys on the floor. I have him projected for 34 minutes. I have him projected for the second highest usage rate on the team behind Antonio Blakeney. So even though he's the most expensive, that's obviously the downside, but I still like him, especially on DraftKings. He has point guard, small forward eligibility, which is nice. Arcidiacono at almost a minimum on FanDuel, I would prioritize just because of how cheap he is. At 4,100 on DraftKings, not quite as appealing, but still, clearly a good point per dollar option. Wayne Selden, I would put ahead of Arcidiacono on DraftKings. Guard, small forward eligibility makes it nice. I have him projected for the most minutes on the team at 36. And he's another guy that we know from his time with Memphis, and we know from his time so far with Chicago, he's not afraid to go out there and chuck up some shots. So he's not a particularly efficient shooter, but he'll try. And so, I think that he's a good play. I think that Blakeney it's really difficult not to find 24 to 26 minutes for Blakeney here because of Markkanen being out. I have TLC projected for 34 minutes. I have Sampson projected for 30 minutes, and I still have 26 minutes for Blakeney. So at 3,600, obviously I think he's a quality option as well. I would still, in terms of median projections, put him behind Harrison, Selden, and Arcidiacono, but he's my fourth best play from Chicago.
All right. Do you want to talk anywhere else on Chicago, or do we pretty much know what we're looking at here? I mean, I don't think it's that difficult as far as the Bulls go. It's just more or less, are they going to be any good tonight? And look, the minutes will be there. They're not going to run a big rotation. Boylan probably couldn't if he wanted to. No Markkanen, no Porter, no Levine, no Dunn. Obviously, guys like Chandler Hutchison and Wendell Carter are gone. Valentine never even played this season. I mean, there are a million injuries that they're dealing with right now, and it's going to be a compressed rotation. It's really a matter of what will they do with the minutes they get against the Blazers, who are also, I don't even know why I'm lifting my mic or moving my mic or talking into my mic. I don't think my mic is even picking anything up. But these guys, both teams are down a lot. Portland should still win this game handily, but you're going to get the minutes from all of them.
Right. And so, I mean, if I'm making a few lineups, those are the four that I would stick to. If I'm max entering, I think I end up with some exposure to even guys like TLC and Brandon Sampson at basically minimum price tags, playing 30-plus minutes probably. The only guys that I don't really see myself getting to are the two centers, who I have seen plenty of talk about in chat. But for me, the opportunity cost is just higher than I really want to go to on either of these guys. I have Lopez projected for 0.85 points per minute. I have Felicio projected for the same. But there are just so many good center plays on the slate that it's tough for me to really get to those guys as opposed to, cheap guards and forwards that I can mix in to allow me to, afford the guys like Lillard and, Gobert and Ayton and Valanciunas and guys like that.
Yeah. On the other side of this game, Damian Lillard has produced monster numbers with McCollum off the floor, and now you have no use of Nurkic. I mean, he's only played 333 minutes with both off, but he has a 42% usage rate and 1.6 fantasy points per minute. I get that Lillard's expensive, but at this rate, you just have to consider him every single night. I mean, it's not like they can just coast. By the way, starting lineup for the Bulls, Harrison, Selden, Blakeney back in it, Sampson, and Lopez. So assuming that's accurate, Arcidiacono will come off the bench. Blakeney moves into the starting lineup. So there you have it. Harrison starting at the point. But as far as Lillard goes, Adam, they need to win games as much as anybody right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned the numbers. He obviously been really good.
And Conley is active.
Cool. That makes this slate not quite as much of a dumpster fire. But yeah, I mean, Lillard, obviously been really, really good, even playing alongside Nurkic. But going back to the start of last season, without CJ McCollum or Nurkic on the floor, he's averaged 1.53 DraftKings points per minute. He has a 41.6% usage rate with a 29.8% assist percentage. I've seen talk about, Portland's just going to blow out Chicago and they can rest Dame. If Portland blows out Chicago, though, it's probably because Dame blew them out, because I don't really know who else on this team's doing it. So I still have no reason not to get to him. I have him projected for 36 minutes as opposed to 37 or 38 because I assume that Stotts will look to get him out as early as he can. But there's just no reason for me to worry about a blowout here when there's one scorer on the team that would be doing the blowing out.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe two. I mean, Enes Kanter, I don't know what his playing time is going to look like, Adam. I don't.
Neither do I.
But what I do know is that he is a very good rebounder and he is a very good scorer. So if we're getting significant playing time, or even close to significant playing time from Kanter, he is certainly going for this. How do I sound?
Exactly the same.
Really? It didn't change? Yes, it did. That's not true. It had to have changed. You're telling me it doesn't sound any better than it did before?
Sounds the same to me.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's strange and unfortunate because I have my mic up now. Or at least it says I do. As long as you can hear me. Whatever. For anyone tuning in, obviously had some audio problems, but whatever. Anyway, what I'm saying is, yeah, and I think you're right that it was creating an echo. I don't know if that's going to be happening anymore. It shouldn't be. Thank you. Yeah, all right, he's right. I sound perfect now, and that should create no more echo for Adam. Something must have been loose in the back of my mixer. I unplugged it, plugged it back in, and then did it again. And the second time it worked. So, cool. And appreciate it, fellas. Getting a lot of, you're good now. You're good now. All right. Appreciate it. We're good. You didn't even notice, but that's okay. So with Kanter, you're talking about a guy who, since coming to Portland, 1.2 fantasy points per minute. And now no Nurkic to be behind him. Of course, we could see other guys getting run at center. But nice, Adam. Nice. Real nice. And no McCollum either. I mean, you can't just have it be Dame Lillard. I get that he's going to see a ton of work. He's going to see Russell Westbrook in the no Durant, or he's going to see James Harden like usage with Chris Paul out, or at least close. He really is, especially down the stretch. But Kanter's going to get a lot of work for every minute he's on the court, I would assume.
Yeah, I agree. I have him projected for 1.3 points per minute. I have him at 26 minutes. Obviously, he could play more, but at his price tag, that's enough for me to get him in a bunch of lineups anyway. And I'm not convinced that he takes over a 30 or 30-plus minute role because
me neither.
Josh and I were talking about it this morning, and I'm not sure. Obviously, I'll see if you agree. But in the playoffs, Kanter should not be in a bigger role. It should be Zach Collins. So I think that it wouldn't be surprising if Kanter still stays in like the mid-20s in minutes and Zach Collins just gets more run.
It's possible. It's definitely possible. I will say this much. Portland's defense, their front court and interior defense takes a big hit. A big hit.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no question. And that's why I think that there's a pretty good chance the game plan is to get get Kanter, 25, 26 minutes, but get Zach Collins more run, throw a few minutes to Myers Leonard, because I just don't see a world in the playoffs where Enes Kanter is playing like 34 minutes a night.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question is, is Collins a significant defensive upgrade?
Yeah.
How big? It is the question. Here's the big thing for me. Is Collins a big enough defensive upgrade, whereas Kanter's better rebounding and better offensive abilities are outweighed by Collins' defense? Because you're not going to have.
That's a fair question.
What's that?
That's a fair question.
So that's the question, because you have Al Farouk Aminu and Harkless, guys that are just straight 3-and-D guys, right? I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but it's kind of important. And then guys like Seth Curry, yeah, he's going to get work, but he's still Seth Curry. That'll be something Terry Stotts has to answer for, and it might be something he toys with down the last 8 or 9 games of the season.
Yeah, agreed. So I mean, the main takeaway here for me is just that even at 26 minutes, I'm getting enough Kanter that on a deep center slate, I don't feel like I need more. But I still think he's obviously a really good play. I think that he's someone I would look to in cash at 5K for sure.
Well, hey, they always have Rodney Hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should end well. And yeah, Jay Kelly says depends on who they're playing, right? Of course, yeah, it absolutely depends on who they're playing. And there are going to be spots where Cantor is the better option, or where Collins getting more minutes is the better option. On a night like tonight, I could see Cantor easily getting those minutes because, are you really too concerned about Robin Lopez and whoever's at the 4, or really any guard driving into the paint? This isn't exactly the spot to worry about it. Might be a decent time to test drive Enes Kanter for extended minutes in the starting lineup. So the ultimate question is, Adam, what are you projecting him for tonight?
I've been 26 minutes.
26 minutes?
And like 33 DraftKings points.
Okay. All right. Is that coming up as a good play, decent play?
Yeah, good play. I mean, I'll probably, my guess would be I end up around 30, 40% in DraftKings tournaments.
And how much love for Lillard overall?
Probably my highest owned guy on the slate.
Yeah, it's just impossible to get away from him. The rest of the team, and then we'll move on. Harkless, Aminu, I alluded to them. I mean, Rodney Hood. I honestly think Seth Curry will continue to play pretty solid minutes. And look, he hasn't been great with Nurkic and Lillard off the floor, but the fact of the matter remains that he's still going to be playing about 40% of his minutes, maybe less without Lillard now because you don't have Nurkic. But like, he's going to play all of Lillard's non-minutes, and he's still going to play 30 plus. Now that Mike Conley is active, you have less value for Memphis. Where are you at on these peripheral guys for Portland?
I agree that Curry should get around 30 minutes here. I have him projected for 3/4 of a point per minute, which is slightly higher than his 0.67 point per minute average for the season. It makes him, a reasonable value option. Still not in like the same ballpark as the Chicago guys, but reasonable. Aminu, kind of the same thing. I would rather get to Curry than Aminu. Harkless is my favorite out of the 3. I have him slightly ahead of Curry, especially when you factor in that Harkless is a forward instead of a guard, and we have just tons of guard value on this slate. And then, again, if you're playing 150 lineups and get some, Zach Collins or Rodney Hood exposure, I think that's perfectly fine. Obviously, don't play Collins in the same lineup as Cantor. I would limit how much Hood I have with Aminu or Harkless also.
Okay. Let's move it on then. Golden State and Memphis. Golden State Warriors on the road here, 10.5 point road favorites, 219.5 total. I guess everyone's going to play. I wouldn't have been surprised if Steve Kerr, like last minute, decides that he doesn't need all of his starters to play in this one, especially if Conley was out. But you know what? You got to take all teams seriously, I guess, especially on the road. We'll start with the road team and the Warriors. I am not getting to much Golden State at all tonight. I understand that a lot of them are inexpensive, but especially with Cousins in the lineup and getting his full allotment of minutes, it's made it a bit more difficult. Where do you stand on the Warriors today?
I'm mostly there with you. They, guys like Curry and Cousins grade out as, perfectly fine plays. I just can't prioritize them over, other guys that are around them. But one guy that I'm getting quite a bit of, and I don't feel great about it, but at the same time, I know he's going to be low owned, and I don't feel bad about it either, is Klay Thompson at 7K on DraftKings. Just getting a pretty healthy amount, especially once I start to factor in that he's projected for low ownership. No matter really what I look at for the season, whether I put him on, whether I make him play all of his minutes with DeMarcus Cousins, whether I go from the time Cousins got back into the lineup, whether I take his full season numbers, no matter what rates I use, I get him projected as my top play from Golden State. So that's a spot where I don't feel great about it, but I will trust what I have in front of me, and I'll end up overweight on Klay Thompson.
Fair enough. On the other side, you got the Memphis Grizzlies. Mike Conley is active now. You and I had this discussion that, hey, if Mike Conley plays, then we have no reason to assume that he's not going to get his full run. I'm a little bit more lukewarm on that than I was. The reason I say that is he participated in shoot around and, still didn't play. Is this I don't know, but if he's going to play, how do I say he's not going to get his minutes? So as of now, I am projecting Mike Conley for 34 minutes as he's been playing, and we'll see if it backfires, but that's what I have, Adam.
Same spot for me, and it makes him a really good play. He's only 7,400 on DraftKings.
That's why I get a bit scared.
That is something that could drive down what I was just saying about Klay, because I do have him ahead of Klay Thompson. But it's a really appealing price tag. I'm with you. I don't expect his minutes to be limited. They're off for, I think, the next 3 days after tonight's game. So the fact that they're bringing him back means to me that he's good to go. And also they don't need to worry about, limiting him like it's the front end of a back-to-back or anything like that. So I'm perfectly fine with Conley. It takes appeal away from DeLon Wright and Tyler Dorsey, obviously. Makes them both just secondary options for me, especially with how much guard value there is on the slate. It takes a little bit of shine off of Jonas Valanciunas as well, but not enough to where he's still not a really good center play, in my opinion. Joakim Noah still out. I have Valanciunas projected at 32 minutes. He's averaged 1.3 points per minute alongside Conley since joining the team. So him and Conley just still, my two favorite guys from Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, look, would I have liked Valanciunas quite a bit more if Conley was out? Yeah, I would have. But I don't think it's going to do him a huge disservice just because, as you pointed out, Joakim Noah out makes a pretty big deal, or is a pretty big deal as well. So, we have that. Dude, Joe Val with Conley and Avery Bradley off the court, it's like 1.46 fantasy points, something crazy. But even in this spot where you have Valanciunas has played 86 minutes with Bradley, Jackson, and Anderson off and Conley on. And he's at 1.5 fantasy points per minute. So 38% usage. Granted, very small sample, but to your point, Mike Conley being on the floor is not going to make Joe Val useless, not even remotely.
Right. Yeah, no question. And I did finally find a stat that makes me feel a little bit better about Klay Thompson, so I can at least trick myself into trusting my numbers.
Hit me. Let's get it. What is it?
So, obviously league leader in possessions off screens per game. Memphis, despite being a good defense for pretty much all season, they're not as good now as they were before, but still the entire season, the 9th most points per possession to shooters off of screens, the 9th highest effective field goal percentage. So it's been a spot where they at least struggle this season. And again, that's not something that if I didn't have Klay projected better than I would like, I wouldn't be bumping him up. But the fact that it's there, I'm going to take it.
Isn't it nice to have play type data back?
Yeah, man. And the last time I looked at play type data on Klay and was like, oh man, I really like this spot, except for this, he scored 12 points against Dallas. So
there you go. I mean, look, the play type data, knowing, being able to get the pick and roll information to me is so important. Is it necessary? Of course not, but it's a nice complement to any of the research you're doing each day for sure. But now that Conley's in, Dorsey, Wright, Holiday, Caboclo, all these guys become far less enticing. What are your thoughts on the second tier guys or third, fourth, fifth tier guys for Memphis?
No, I mean, I agree with you. You should get around 30 minutes still from Wright. You should get probably 28 minutes from Dorsey, but they're going to be, obviously playing more minutes with Mike Conley, because if he plays 34 or 35 minutes, that only leaves, 14 or 13 minutes that he's not on the floor. One of these guys, probably Dorsey, is going to start alongside him. So they're just pure secondary options for me.
Yep. If you were to take the the minutes with Conley on and Bradley, Jackson, and Anderson off, I suppose I could have added Noah, but just looking at this from a starting lineup standpoint, you're getting per minute rates for DeLon Wright at 0.81. You're not getting a lot from Dorsey, 0.75 in not many minutes. DeLon Wright, I think, is other than Dorsey, because those are just straight minutes there. But I think Wright is affected most by Conley than anybody else. Outside of the minutes, it's going to be a rough go for him. But it is a pace-up spot, as is every matchup for Memphis. All right. By the way, Enes Kanter confirmed starting, so we at least have that. What does that mean? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to see 28 minutes or so, though. It's still up in the air, and we'll pay close attention to it. At least we know that he is starting for the injured Yusuf Nurkic. All right, Adam. OKC hosting the Indiana Pacers. We've got the Thunder 6.5-point favorites, 217.5 total. Once again, playoff implications, huge here, massive. It's not to say that the Thunder, everyone in the 1 through 8 in the West is going to make the playoffs, unless the Kings win every game to close the season and one of these teams loses almost every game, which isn't going to happen. So these guys, look, it's a big 5.5 points difference between the 8th and 9th seed. But the Thunder with a win can gain ground. With a loss, they tie the Spurs. Or sorry, with a loss, they tie the Spurs for 8th in the conference. Meaning, if it were to end there, they're facing the Warriors or the Nuggets in the first round. Likely the Warriors, although they're tied identical, 50 and 23 with the Nuggets right now. Every game's big for OKC down the stretch, and this is a very winnable one against the Pacers.
Yeah, no question. It's just still a huge pace down spot. It is a good Indiana defense. I'm really interested to see where you are on Westbrook and George, because for me, Westbrook, obviously he's $10,500 on DraftKings. That's too cheap. I don't care who he's playing, but there's a lot of value at guard. There's Damian Lillard at guard. He's not projected for a lot of ownership either, for a 5-game slate. You have Devin Booker, who we'll talk about. So it's a really, really deep position, whereas Ford really doesn't have much. And I have Paul George projected very similarly to Westbrook in terms of raw points. He's a little bit cheaper, and he's at a better position. So I expect to get a lot of Paul George. I expect to get less Russell Westbrook. And, I never feel great about not having a lot of Westbrook, but I'm, pretty comfortable if my stand is like Damian Lillard against Westbrook here.
Yeah, look, in today's deep dive, I closed out the Thunder right up with this. In a significant pace down matchup, Westbrook and George are the only Thunder worth targeting with any frequency. George, however, edges out Westbrook as a priority due to less depth at his position. I think it's pretty much what you're saying, pretty much where you're at, where we both are at, but also in the sense that you're not projecting them that far off. And look, I have them projected 5 points different, but the positional depth at small forward is so much less. And I think it makes a big difference. I mean, there's no LeBron James. I'm really not interested in Kevin Durant. And then you're getting into the Harklesses and the Mikal Bridges looking at FanDuel, where you have to play 2 of them, of course. It's a rough position. Just the scarcity there makes George the better play for me.
Yeah, I agree. And even on DraftKings, it's not great. I mean, like Shaq Harrison has small forward eligibility, but this isn't one of those slates where you have, a Buddy Hield and a Luka with small forward eligibility,
Right.
and a bunch of these multi-position guys that you can plug in there. Devin Booker doesn't have small forward eligibility anymore. That's been a while. So once you get beyond George, you get Kevin Durant against Memphis, whatever. Harrison is Harrison. You have, Wayne Selden. You have like Donovich on the other side of this game, but it's still just a really unappealing position, even on DraftKings.
I agree. As far as I get that Adams is cheap, but there are a bunch of centers I like more. Jeremy Grant, I understand it on FanDuel. Not a great position, but I'm just not big on Jeremy Grant. The whole Thunder team is in a pace down spot. But for obvious reasons, I do like George. I think I like Westbrook a little bit more than you do. But if you were to say Westbrook or Lillard, I'm going Lillard here. And then as far as Grant and Adams go, I'm just not really there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. Like I have Westbrook ahead of Steph Curry. I have him ahead of Donovan Mitchell. It's just that I have him behind Lillard. When you factor in price, I have him behind Lillard. I have him behind Booker. And then I have him behind, Shaq and Blakeney.
Right. Yeah, me too. Do you want to talk about the Pacers? I asked you earlier today, actually. What are your thoughts on the Pacers? Where do you stand? And you pretty much gave the answer that I was expecting. Kind of lukewarm. If you get them, you get them. All kind of secondary or tertiary guys. Could you make an argument for Thad Young? Cheap Miles Turner? I'm sure you could. Cheap Darren Collison. Sabonis off the bench with, minutes that are less than you'd like. I mean, all of these guys are just kind of there. They do have a pace-up matchup for sure, but you'd be hard-pressed to really convincingly say how much you love one of these Indiana players tonight.
Yeah, I agree. They're guys where I do expect to get to them across a bunch of tournament lineups, but
right.
Unless I were intentionally looking to be contrarian in like a single entry or something like that, they're not guys that I prioritize. I do have Darren Collison. Like looking at DraftKings pricing, I have him slightly ahead of Rondo. I have him basically as my favorite mid-range guard, like my favorite point guard between $4,900 Shaq Harrison and $90 or $7,900 or $7,400 Conley. So like I'll get some ownership on him there. I think Bogdanovich is appealing, especially on FanDuel. He actually has a 27.5% usage rate since the All-Star break. Small forward eligible there, is nice. Him and Thad both, they're perfectly reasonable. It's just that I don't feel great about either one. And then Miles Turner, it's a spot where I do expect him to be able to get some blocks against Westbrook and against Schroeder. He's able to pull Adams away from the basket. He's not dependent on scoring at the rim. But when you just start comparing him to guys like DeAndre Ayton to Enes Kanter for $1,200 less on DraftKings, it becomes really difficult to prioritize him outside of him being the contrarian guy in a lineup.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Tough to convincingly talk about any of them with any conviction. Where it's like, yes, they're fine. They're perfectly fine. You're just not going to fall in love with any of these guys is kind of the thing.
Right.
Do you want to talk about Phoenix and Washington? I think we might spend some time on this one.
Yeah.
All right. So highest total of the slate, unsurprisingly. Actually, the only one above 220. It's a 231. Wizards 1.5 point road favorites. Look, we'll start with Phoenix. Devin Booker had 59 of the Suns' 92 points last game. 19 of their 31 made field goals, 16 of their 24 made free throw attempts. Clearly, Devin Booker is going to get a ton of work. If you were to take Oubre, Josh Jackson, Warren, and Tyler Johnson off the court, since the deadline with all of them out, Booker's got a 42.5% usage rate, 33% assist rate, almost 1.5 fantasy points per minute. Not a big sample, only 121 minutes, but just on the season, that with the lineup that he's working with tonight, and an ultra juicy matchup with the Wizards, Booker's going to have every opportunity he needs to smash. The question is whether or not you're willing to pay for him. On DraftKings 9,200, I don't find to be all that outrageous. He is, however, 10-7 now on FanDuel, Adam.
Yeah, so I went back to the start of the season, and without Warren, Oubre, or Jackson on the floor, so not accounting for Trevor Ariza or Tyler Johnson, but without those three guys on the floor, the three highest usage guys outside of DeAndre Ayton that he plays with, 36.4% usage, 31.5% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.22 points per minute. He plays huge minutes. Washington's bad enough to keep this game competitive. The only negative thing I could really say is that Washington, since the All-Star break, is only playing at the 13th or 14th fastest pace in the league, but they're still an awful defense, and they still have guys that can go out there and run. So I expect this to be a fast enough game. Looking at FanDuel at shooting guard, no one grades out really well. Clay, reasonably well. Booker, reasonably well. And then you have Selden and Blakeney both at basically minimum priced. So if you wanted to save money there, I think you can. But if I were going to spend money, then Clay and Booker would still be the two guys I go to, even at the elevated price for Booker. At 9,200 on DraftKings, I have him as like a huge priority for me, basically right behind Dame Lillard amongst the guards.
Yep, for sure. And with the fact that you can get both of them pretty easily tonight, definitely makes it more appealing. DeAndre Ayton, I think, is interesting. 6,800 on DraftKings. He has 83 on FanDuel, but again, you're looking at a starting lineup with guys like D'Anthony Melton. Elia Kobo's been getting minutes. I mean, Mikal Bridges is out there, but you wouldn't know it unless you actually looked to see his name in the box score. He's been invisible. Guys like Bender are getting minutes. And then I don't know how many minutes Jimmer Fredette's gonna get, but like Ayton has upside in a spot like this against this Wizards team that's been beat up pretty good by centers this year. I get Thomas Bryant starting, and it's a slight upgrade, but it's not really enough.
Yeah, and if you look at those numbers for the season without Jackson or Warren or Oubre on the floor, Ayton has a 25.5% usage rate. If you put Devin Booker on the floor to try and help control and make the situation as close to tonight as you can, still 23.7% usage rate, 19.3% rebounding percentage, and a 10% assist percentage. He's averaged 1.13 points per minute over those 222 minutes alongside Booker. It is a good matchup against Washington. He's favorably priced. So yeah, I have no reason not to like Ayton here.
Anybody else for the Suns?
Not with any, regularity. You do have, I expect like 22 minutes from Okobo at 3K. I don't think he's any worse than Brandon Sampson is if he's going to be lower owned. Just as an example of a pivot there. Kind of the same thing with Rashawn Holmes at 3,900. There's certainly upside, but these are just guys where if you're playing 150 lineups, you're sprinkling them in.
All right. On the other side, Washington, no Trevor Ariza. So are you expecting Portis back in the starting lineup? Or are you expecting...
Yeah, I'm expecting Portis.
Okay, because I believe Jeff Green started the second half of last game, right?
Possibly.
I think he did.
I get it. Yeah, that's actually worth looking at because the only reason Portis or Bryant and Portis were starting was Brooks wanted to see them play alongside each other. If he's had enough of that, I guess that would be Jeff Green.
Right. So I don't know yet. I mean, I don't know what the case will be, but yeah, it was Jeff Green that started the second half last night. Now, keep this in mind, though. This is what's kind of interesting. If you look at the third quarter of this game, Adam, Thomas Bryant played from down to like the 4-minute mark, so he played 8 minutes into the third. Green played for the first like 5 minutes. He caught his fourth foul early on too, but it looks like he stayed in. And Portis comes in and plays like 3 more minutes alongside Bryant. So it's not like Brooks wasn't willing to play them next to each other at all. Just more so Ariza got the start. Portis played next to Bryant in the second quarter as well. I don't know what to think. My initial thought, was that Portis would start, but since Green started the second half, I was a little bit taken back by it, not really knowing where I stand. But I can tell you, I still think it helps Bryant get back up to bigger minutes tonight.
Yeah, I have Bryant at 32 minutes. I have Portis at 30. I have Green at 24. I guess you could, take a couple minutes off Portis or Bryant and give them the Green if you want. But Bryant, regardless, is going to be the guy that I'm prioritizing here on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's not as appealing since he is a center, and there are a lot of them here. It's still a really good spot, though, against Phoenix. We know that he's athletic enough to play well in these games. He contributes across the board when he's out there. He's been greater than a point per minute guy all season long. Hopefully his ownership comes down because he let down 2/3 of the field last night, but still not shying away from him at 6K on DraftKings with power forward eligibility.
Yeah, neither am I. With that eligibility making a huge difference. Thoughts on Troy Brown at minimum salary on FanDuel?
Yeah, just load him up on FanDuel again. I don't think he's really necessary at 4,800 on DraftKings, but 35 on FanDuel, it's you either drop him or you get one of the best point per dollar plays that there is.
And the fact that he's small forward eligible.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's just making a huge difference there. Let's talk about Beal for a second. Look, I'll be honest with you. I think, or I at least wouldn't be surprised to see his minutes down a little bit today.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a second of a back-to-back. They played another back-to-back on the 20th and 21st. So this is their 5th game in 7 days. Like, I get that it's Scott Brooks and he doesn't care, but he actually has given Beal, and they played a back-to-back on the 15th and 16th too. They've seen a lot of them lately. I still have him at 36 minutes. Wouldn't be surprised if he got a little higher, but it is something I'm at least paying attention to. I'm also paying attention to the fact that they're facing Phoenix, and it's a really good spot. So where do you land when it comes to Bradley Beal? He's $9K on DraftKings, $200 less expensive than Devin Booker, and $10K on FanDuel where he's $700 cheaper.
So I agree with you on the minutes. I have him at 36 also, but to add on to that, Brooks also did mention that they would like to rest Beal down the stretch. He just needs to figure out like what game to do it. So he's certainly cognizant of how many minutes Beal's played and doesn't want to keep doing it. So that just makes me, more confident in not projecting him for like 38 or 39.
Right. And it's a road game on a back-to-back.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think he's perfectly fine at 9K. It's just I don't have him in the same ballpark as Devin Booker. The one thing to keep in mind, though, is that at least last I checked our projected ownership, Devin Booker was projected to be very highly owned and Beal not so much. So, if you pull some back on Booker and give some to Beal, I think that's perfectly fine as a pivot.
All right. What about anything else here on Washington that we haven't talked about before we get to the last game?
Nothing that's a priority. Like Satoransky's fine, but I have him behind I have him behind Collison. I have him behind Rondo. Bobby Portis, I have behind Bryant. I have behind like Derek Favors. So it's mostly Bryant for me with other guys sprinkled in.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I still think, look,
and Troy Brown on table.
And Troy Brown, yeah. Beal still has a huge ceiling here, but I think his floor. The fact that I worry a little bit about his minutes, whereas with Devin Booker, Kokoskov literally took him out with 5 fouls, down by 25. You had tweeted this at me. I mean, he comes out with 5 fouls and then brings him back with 2 minutes left when they're down by a couple dozen points. That's amazing.
Yeah, so at least we know if he scores 59 points in 3.5 quarters, he'll get run later in the quarter.
Yeah. My thinking, though, is Kokoskov is going to continue to give him solid minutes to close out the season. Plus, it's a home game. At least put your best player on the floor.
Yep.
And he's been playing huge minutes regardless, so I have no reason to believe that he won't again. All right. Hey, by the way, baseball season's coming up. If you haven't checked out awesemo.com, we'd love to have you check us out for sure. It's easy way to get half off, 50% off your first month of subscription as well. Just use the promo code Deeper Dive. We got MLB starting tomorrow, opening day. Adam's got the deep dive. I know he's stoked because it's an earlier start and he gets to write it at like 2 a.m., which is pretty exciting. I'll tell you what, the first baseball deep dive of the year is grueling because you're still trying to remember where all the new players are. Like you've done your research, you've put in the work, but it's still like you still have to train yourself to remember who's where and this team and changes. Like there's so much that goes on. If you actually want to write a thorough article and not just use last year's information and only last year's information, it takes a long time.
Yeah, and there's 10 positions to write about instead of 5.
It's not 10, right? What is it? 1.
Well, yeah. So outfield's 3 of them, I guess.
Do you write up individual left, right, center, and right fielders?
Yeah, left, center, right, DH.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Anyway, Deeper Dive. One word. Use it to get half off your first month at awesemo.com. Or you can check us out weekly. We have weekly passes as well. They're pretty popular. If you're looking to dip your feet, not dive in head first, we have the weekly passes, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. And as I've mentioned, for everything, NBA is still happening, but we got MLB ownership projections, player projections, and ownership projections for golf and NASCAR and every other sport. All just you name it, we've got it. And articles from Adam, myself, Ben Rasa, of course, all of Josh Engelman's work, and so much more that I'm forgetting. Use the promo code Deeper Dive to get half off your first month at awesemo.com. It's a great time to join with baseball starting tomorrow. And when you do, say what's up in the Slack chat, the premium Slack chat. We'll get you entered into that upon signing up. Let us know you're here. All right, Utah, LA. Utah, 16-point favorites, Adam. LeBron James officially ruled out. We've got a 217 total. This game, I don't know how competitive it stays, but it is what it is. By the way, I will point out, too, that the last blowout at home, Quinn Snyder did limit those minutes. So, I mean, will he? I don't know. But, we saw Mitchell play less minutes. I think Derek Favors is the one where you probably don't worry about as much. Like you said, he starts the fourth quarter. They lost
like 4 minutes in that game. Gobert played like 28 or 29 minutes.
Mitchell played 27.
Mitchell didn't play like the entire fourth. I think he was. I don't
Right.
remember why, but he just wasn't out there.
Right.
Like
Gobert-
Ingles got his 30. Crowder got his 28 or 29.
Yeah. Ingles and Crowder aren't guys I'm concerned about. Look, all I'm saying is I don't know if he's going to try and find them rest if they're up by a ton of points heading into the postseason. We'll see, though. We'll see. I still think Mitchell's facing the Lakers. Rudy Gobert is facing a Lakers front court that's been trashed all season long. He's $8,200 on DraftKings. I mean, you're not going to hear me arguing against Utah. I'm just pointing out the minutes from last game. I mean, it is a preeminent spot for.
Oh, that's
this.
what it was.
Go,
Mitchell was in foul trouble early in the third.
is that what it was? Okay.
So I mean that was part of it. Like
so
it cost him a few minutes.
All right. Well, either way, let's talk about the Jazz.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously a really good spot, and we finally get a slate for Gobert where there's no Vooch, there's no Jokic, there's no the other really Embiid, and we have Enes Kanter at 5K, and we have Ayton against the Wizards. So still tough to get to him as as one of my highest owned guys, but that's going to be everyone's opinion as well, I think, and he certainly has a ton of upside here in this spot against the Lakers. So he's my favorite. He's my top play from the Lakers when you just look at like projection and points. Favors is a little bit more appealing because he has forward eligibility, especially on FanDuel where you do have to roster 2 power forwards. You can't play like Thomas Bryant there. So it's not a team that I'm getting, at least on DraftKings, I'm not getting to a lot of these guys, but it's really similar to like Indiana for me, where I'm more than happy to use them as the contrarian play in a tournament lineup because I think that there's upside there.
Favors is still really nicely priced on DraftKings too, by the way.
Yeah, it's just really, really hard to get to that price range, I think.
It is. I mean, it's also, what is he, 74 on FanDuel now? He's the get this, he's your most expensive power forward tonight.
It is a bad position.
It's a very bad position. I'm just saying it's pretty wild that Derek Favors is your most expensive player who never plays more than 27 minutes per game. That's something else. Look, I'm with you. Mitchell's down to what, $7,900 on DraftKings. He's getting there. He's super cheap and he's got a really good matchup. I think all of these guys are in play. Really, I have zero issues with any of them. And you're right. There are some good centers, but it's not nearly as deep, particularly at the top. You forgot to mention no $8,600 Andre Drummond either,
and no $6,900 Nurkic.
Nurkic, yeah, exactly. With the Lakers, man, I've just been really hesitant to get on board with these guys lately. I get, LeBron is out. The one player I do want to talk about, we still have a few minutes, is Rajon Rondo, because yesterday he was not very good. He put it together a little bit in the final frame, or in the second half. Played 33 minutes. It is a back-to-back. LeBron's off the floor. There is no Brandon Ingram. Obviously, there's no Lonzo Ball. Where are you at on Rondo here, knowing that from a per-minute standpoint, he has been very good in this situation all season long?
I have him a little bit behind Collison just because Collison's matchup is so much more appealing. I think they play similar minutes here. I'd be kind of surprised, really surprised if Rondo played like huge minutes at Utah on a back-to-back. So I have him at 32 minutes. It makes him grayed out as a good play for me. He's right there with Collison amongst those guys between like Shaq Harrison and Mike Conley for me. Lance Stevenson, I think, is probably the guy that I get to the most from the Lakers just because he does on FanDuel, he's a small forward. On DraftKings, he has guard and forward eligibility. He's still really cheap. He should play 25, 26 minutes here. And without LeBron out there, it's just more ball handling and playmaking opportunities for him. Kyle Kuzma on FanDuel, I think, is more appealing because, again, you can't roster Thomas Bryant at power forward. So you start having to look for more options. And Kuzma does have a 28.5% usage rate without LeBron or Ingram on the floor this season. He's not particularly efficient. It is a tough matchup, but the opportunities should be there.
What are your thoughts on guys like KCP if Bullock is out? Obviously, we know Hart is also out. LeBron is out. Anybody else for this Lakers team? And we'll close it out with JaVale McGee.
Yeah, I mean, not really interested in KCP now that his price has come up and it is a tough matchup. There's just so much value on the slate that's cheaper than him that I can go to. For McGee, it's tough. I mean, I have him projected for 32 minutes here. He said the reason he's been playing better is that he was dealing with like the effects of pneumonia for like 2 months, and now he finally feels better. So for whatever that's worth, I mean, he's playing really, really well. It's just that it's a deep position, even for the 5-game slate. There's a lot of appealing spots, and going up against Utah isn't really appealing for anyone. So, I don't think I'll get a ton of McGee.
Me neither. It's a little concerning with the way he's played lately, but you still have Cantor at the price that he's at. There are ways to get away from it and feel okay about it too. Anyway, that'll do it for us. Appreciate you guys as always. It's been an awesome season. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We're still going to talk basketball, but we're of course going to have to, not going to have to. We're going to be talking a lot of baseball as well, and we can't wait for you to come along for the ride and join us. The season starts tomorrow. We'll be getting deeper dives going forward. We're going to talk, if you missed the beginning of the show or if my audio is messed up, which we apologize for, we're going to be starting off with some basketball, go position by position, and then jump into baseball while the overlap happens over the next. It'll really only be going up till next Friday or Saturday, so it's not that long. But we want to make it the best experience we can for you guys watching on YouTube. And, of course, for all of our premium subs, we've got all of that taken care of in the background. So if you're heading over to awesomemode.com, we've still got plenty of NBA content. We're not slowing down there. And, of course, a ton of baseball content, as we should, with opening day tomorrow. So, hey, if you like the video and you appreciate what we do here, you want to see more, hit us with a thumbs up, like the video. It helps us a ton, and we really appreciate it. Subscribe, hit that notification bell so you always know when content's dropping next. Other than that, Live Before Lock is coming up next, taking you up till 8 p.m. lock. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow.